Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome back to LEGO Awards, the show where I count down the best of the best that LEGO released this year in 2024. We have seen minifigures, sets under $20 and sets between $20 to $50, and so it's time for that next price range. My favorite sets that came out this year between the price ranges of $50 to $100 US dollars. The $100 mark opens the door to a ton of amazing LEGO sets, and this was one of the hardest categories yet. But now, let's jump on in to number 10. Okay, starting off with our number 10 pick, we have set number 60440, the LEGO delivery truck from LEGO City, coming in at $100 US dollars. This is a really simple set. Basically, it is just a large truck that delivers LEGO sets, but it's been a while since we've gotten something like this, and I really appreciate just how fun and vibrant it is. First of all, it includes some phenomenal new printed elements showcasing the LEGO brand guidelines on the sides of them, with the different bricks and minifigures all multicolored alongside the truck, and it introduces a number of unique printed elements showcasing this year's LEGO City sets, which I think is really cool. Altogether, it's a really fun set because obviously it's kind of meta in the sense that it's a toy based off of other LEGO sets, but that's something I really do appreciate about it. It's very unique in that they actually were able to expand this to a much larger platform, and I think it makes sense. It's the largest LEGO delivery truck we have ever gotten, and we certainly have come a long way since the very early days of LEGO delivery truck sets back in the day, and I really appreciate how there are a lot of ways to play with the set. You can open up the sides, have the forklift drive to remove the pallets of the city sets. You can see like the interstellar starship and the police prison island, the helicopter, and the fire truck, which are pretty quintessential LEGO City sets. Very cool that it actually showcases the box art for those sets from this year, and it even includes a number of unique minifigures as well. There's a minifigure who is decked out in a LEGO employee outfit in the blue with circles, which showcases the actual outfit that LEGO delivery truck drivers wear, and altogether, it's just a lot of fun to play around with. To even have a little bit of a side build with a hot dog stand. Clearly that was like extra budget, but I do appreciate they were trying to make some sort of a scene here, and getting that LEGO logo printed on a 4x4 flat tile is very, very useful as well. It's only number 10 on this list because there's nothing really revolutionary or groundbreaking about how the truck actually is presented, but I do appreciate it because it's very vibrant, it's fun, and there's just a lot you can do with it. Moving on to number 9, we can take a look at a LEGO Technic set. This is 42179 Planet Earth and Moon in Orbit, coming in at $75 US dollars as part of the space sub-theme. Now this is just technically, literally pun intended, a very impressive set. It is the first LEGO orrery build we have gotten that actually functions as an official LEGO set. And to accomplish this, there's actually quite a lot of unique elements being used here with the gears, the mechanisms, but of course the introduction of two brand new spherical elements, one of which is a smaller printed set of elements for the planet Earth, and one of which are larger, unprinted for the Sun, which also appear across different colors for the Technic Wave that came out this year, and I'm sure those new pieces are definitely going to come in handy. Now, of course, this is just a really cool technical build in the sense that as you turn the lever, the Earth spins around at an angle, the Moon orbits around it, and of course the entire thing swings around the spinning Sun, and all of the gearing is actually one-to-one with the actual rotation of the planets, so I think it's actually really cool how LEGO was able to build this out. Now, I've seen people build smaller versions of an orrery, and I actually built one myself as part of my tenure on LEGO Masters, but I just think it's really cool that LEGO decided to make this into an official set. Of course, it's not quite as polished as maybe it could have been. There's a lot of exposed Technic, there's a lot of just large girder and structure elements being used here, but for a LEGO set of an orrery, I think it's pretty cool. Personally, I would love to see them do maybe like a LEGO system version, obviously using the same mechanism, but potentially having brick-built versions of the Sun and Earth and Moon, and maybe even having like a much more polished exterior, which would be, in my opinion, a very cool LEGO set for the future. Moving on from that though, we can take a look at our number 8 pick, and that is 76291, the Avengers Assemble Age of Ultron, coming in at $100. This to me is the perfect example of a diorama scene. LEGO has done a lot of final battle or big Avengers battle dioramas over the years, from the Spider-Man No Way Home diorama to the one focused on Avengers Endgame to the upcoming Civil War set, which is honestly not that great of a build. This is a really cool set to me because it not only recreates an iconic scene one-to-one with all of the Avengers charging towards their enemies, but it also includes quite a lot of scenery and stuff to play around with. It's not just a display set, but you can actually use it as a playset as well to pose your minifigures. Of course, it does come with the truck the Avengers were using to drive into battle. It comes with a watchtower for the Chitauri armored Hydra troopers to fire on the Avengers, and it even comes with a little bit of a gun turret which can be mounted on the side as well. And they even made the gun turret removable so you can see the full scene without any obstruction. I just love how dynamic this scene is. Obviously, you have the minifigures jumping out of the vehicles, Iron Man flying by, Thor preparing to strike down with his hammer, but you even have some trees which are bent at different angles. I like the way they were able to do the snowy pine trees, which actually have the fern elements used in white near the top, and the dark green and regular green near the bottom. It just adds a lot of layers to the scene itself, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with it, from a way to explode the turret utilizing the Hulk, to the truck actually being removable and drivable with a lot of great details. This is a super cool set, and it included a ton of phenomenal minifigures too, with only really one of them being a miss, with Thor being his Avengers 1 version and not the Age of Ultron version. Don't really know why they didn't have the budget to make just one new torso for Thor, but I guess LEGO set designers figured it was close enough to the real thing in the movie, although unfortunately I would have loved to see an actual accurate version of Thor for Age of Ultron, because that's really the only miss when it comes to this set. Everything else is done really well. Overall, this is my favorite of the diorama scenes so far. It replicates a really iconic exact pose from scenes in the movie, and that's something that I really appreciate about this build. For $100, it might be a little bit on the expensive side, but given that it includes the entire Avengers team, as well as 3 different enemy soldiers, I think the value is pretty much there. Moving on from that, we can take a look at number 7, and that is 71478, the Never Witches Midnight Raven. This is a LEGO DREAMZzz set that retails for $100, and say what you will about the LEGO DREAMZzz show, I think that this is actually a really fun build to play around with. There's a whole lot that you can do with this set, from flapping the wings to angling the positioning of all the different transparent opalescent satin pink blades on the side, which really do look like feathers. You can open and close the beak, as well as remove the house on the top and showcase a full interior for the Never Witch's cottage on top of the Raven. I think that this is a really cool set that also acts as a 2-in-1, which of course, like all the LEGO Dream sets, can be built into different things. You kind of have a Baba Yaga style hut with legs, as well as a spider that can crawl along the ground, plus the Raven, or you can mount all of that on the actual back in a different build configuration. It's a really cool setup for a 2-in-1 set, and I love just how uniquely detailed the set is. It's utilizing the Spidey and his amazing friends 4+ cobweb element as a jail cell on the side of the Raven, just adding in more storage space inside, and the feathers just look super good. This is honestly one of the best versions of a large-scale Raven LEGO has ever done, kind of blowing away a lot of the older Chima sets out of the water, and I'm a big fan of the color scheme of the dark blues, the pink being a highlight, and the coral. Just everything really came together to make this a very menacing villain vehicle, as LEGO DREAMZzz often does. Moving on from that though, we can take a look at number 6, and that is maybe a bit of a controversial pick, but I have 75375, the Midi-scale Millennium Falcon, coming in at $85 US. Now, I love the set because I feel like it really captures the curvature and shaping of the Millennium Falcon, shapes that are not easy to capture with mostly square LEGO pieces, incredibly well, especially for a midi-scale set. You have very intricate angles being used to actually mount every single one of the panels, just ever so slightly curved to give the impression of the hamburger-like saucer shape of the Falcon. And of course, you have a whole lot of detail factored into the build despite it being at a smaller scale. Of course, you have it on a display stand, which is really nice to see as well. And yes, while it does retail for $85 US, which does feel like quite a lot, especially for the set that it is, given that it is a very small shape, a lot of those went into very intricate and tiny details within the model, on the outside and even on the inside, featuring Easter eggs of the different main characters standing inside the Falcon. Altogether, the Millennium Falcon midi-scale set is the perfect midi-scale build to me. It has all the curvature, it's a really impressive LEGO build, and I feel like I genuinely learned a lot about LEGO while putting it together and about different building techniques, so I'm a fan of how they were able to pull it off. It is very overpriced though, in my opinion. I think for what you get, it definitely should have been like $15 to maybe even $20 cheaper, so that's honestly the only reason why it's a little bit lower on the list. But with that, we can move on to our next pick, and this one is an interesting one. Now, there are a lot of arguments as to whether I should or should not include a set like this on the list, but given that it is an official LEGO set that you could buy from Shop at Home when it was released earlier this year, it made sense to me to include it on the list as an official set, and this is set number 910037, the Mushroom House, from the Bricklink Designer Program Series 2 set releases. It retailed for $90 and came with a whopping 964 pieces, which is actually pretty good value, and was built by the legendary Jonas Kram, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting earlier this year at Scareback Fan Weekend in Denmark. This is a really charming LEGO set, and I just love how unique it is, taking the concept of a mushroom village, which was kind of hinted at through the collectible minifigure series, and building out a whole set idea around the actual minifigure. The mushroom itself is the star of the show, where you have a very charming and inviting looking mushroom build with the red curved roof as well as the white stem with a door that can open up, but I also just really love all of the accessories and world building around the set. You have a snail, which is done really nicely with a transparent clear trail behind it. There are fruits and flowers hanging on the back of the snail, and even all together, it isn't just a single mushroom, there's a whole lot of depth to the scene. You have all sorts of trees and plants and leaves growing out of the ground. It's almost like a miniature world where the minifigures live in, which makes perfect sense because they are, of course, minifigures, and I just love how dynamic the scene feels. There are rarely any plants that are just single stalk stood straight up. They're all mounted at angles, different mushrooms growing out of the sides, a very long plant with a hanging flower drooping over the side of the smaller mushroom, and little bits and pieces of uniquely shaped flowers hidden all around the scene. There's even a wishing well utilizing the Ninjago Vermilion mini snake element as part of the handle, which is really cool to see that factored in as a bit of a spout. As you go onto the inside of the house, you can lift off the roof to reveal the interior, which is very cozy. There's a fireplace where you can cook some food, a bookshelf, some cups, a chair which is made out of leaves, a table which also is growing out of the ground, a little mini potted plant, and on the upper floor you have a nice little flower-shaped rug, a bed that also has some flower detail on it, and even an easel where you can paint as well as leaf window shades. There's just so many fun details factored into the set, and I'm a big fan of how they were able to pull it off. That being said, because it is a Bricklink AFOL Designer Program set, this has been designed by an adult fan of LEGO and doesn't really go through the same exact quality testing that most LEGO sets do, which means that it is a lot more fragile than a normal set, especially like the bulbs on the back of the snail do tend to fall off very easily, but altogether, it's a really beautiful and intricate set, and I'm a big fan of how they were able to put this one together. Moving on from that, we can take a look at our number 4 pick, and that is 80112, the Auspicious Dragon, which comes in at $90. Now this is part of the Lunar New Year series for LEGO, and I just love the amount of detail and shaping when this dragon was put together. It's just really phenomenally done, with the printed pieces being used for the layering of the scales, the curvature of the dragon, the fact that you can actually move around the feet and kind of pose it a little bit, and of course you have the rock it's standing on, which is a really nice construction as well. I just love the amount of detail that went into this, and it makes me feel like this is one of the best LEGO dragons they've really ever done. Of course, it works more as a statue than a playable dragon, but I'm still a big fan of how they were able to pull it off. Even the base is utilizing studs on the side techniques to actually mount the water and the waves underneath the base, which I think is a really cool technique, almost making it feel like a really high-end mock, and the head itself is beautifully designed with golden, teal, and tan details. The mouth can open and close. You have all sorts of intricate teal and gold elements being factored around the dragon. Just everything about it is really phenomenal to me, and the fact that it retails for only $90 is actually a big win. I'm a big fan of how they were able to pull it off. But with that, we can then move on to our number 3 pick. And at number 3, we have a set that has pretty remarkable value for being on this list, 77073, the LEGO Fortnite Battle Bus, which comes in at $100. The Battle Bus is truly an icon of Fortnite in general, and to complement the Battle Bus, they introduced a number of unique minifigures, every single one exclusive to the set, featuring some with dual molded components, printing on the sides of the arms and legs. You have some brand new molds introduced for the figures, and that's not all, because the figures are only one small part of the set. The Battle Bus itself is rendered phenomenally in LEGO form, and I just love how playable it is as an actual thing. Of course, you have the gigantic hot air balloon mounted on the top, with all sorts of mechanical detail all around it, but then you have seats for every single one of the characters. Yes, it fits all the minifigures inside the bus, which was very important for Epic Games to have included. Lots and lots of minifigure seating space, and all sorts of technical detail all around the bus too. Altogether, I'm really impressed by how they were able to pull this off as a LEGO set, and I would have imagined LEGO to charge a lot more than $100 for this, but they were able to make this totally work, and I'm a fan of how they were able to get it under the $100 price tag, which is very, very impressive, and definitely makes it one of the best valued sets of this particular list. But with that, we can move on to number 2. And at number 2, we have 42638 Castle Bed and Breakfast, which comes in at $100. This is part of the LEGO Friends lineup, which has absolutely been one of the most phenomenal LEGO themes, especially since the reboot last year. But the construction of this set in particular stands out even more than the other LEGO Friends sets. This set was originally conceptualized as a modular compatible building, which would have been at a much higher price point, and while it is very cool to see the prototypes of the set being modular, it does make sense they scaled it down, but obviously the build techniques to make it a more advanced set were absolutely translated over to this particular build. You have some phenomenal sand blue roofing for the color scheme at the top, some really nice and grounded, realistic style of build techniques, and yes, while it is a castle-themed bed and breakfast, I feel like it really does fit into a standard LEGO city as well. I just love the color scheme, utilizing the nougat color, which is a pretty rare color to use as a building material. Usually it's kind of restrained to skin colors, but they were able to really make it pop for this particular bed and breakfast building, and on the back and the interior, there is so much that you can do inside the set. From combining the 2 beds into one or splitting them out, to having a check-in area at the front ground floor, a little sink with a space for the animals to eat, couches to sit on, a little sticker that showcases that the set might have come from 1891, an older style of castle, and a grand bedroom at the top with a much larger bed, a sink, a bathtub with the obligatory duckety on the top floor of the bathroom there, as well as even an attic showcasing some of the history of the build. This is a really phenomenally done set, and I just love how it looks on the inside and out. You have some vines creeping up along the side of the house, a tree on the awning on the outside, and even a very specialized sign showcasing bed and breakfast. Everything about this set is really polished and well done, and the mini doll selection is fantastic as well, utilizing some of the characters from the LEGO Friends theme, but also introducing some new characters as well, such as the owner of the B&B itself, which does have a very nice new hairpiece as well. But with that, we can move on to our number 1 pick. And at number 1, y'all probably saw this coming because this is a set that I've talked about at length through many, many videos this year. And that is 71821 Cole's Titan Dragon Mech, which comes in for $100. Not only is this the best Ninjago mech that we got this year, it's the best Ninjago mech we've gotten ever, and I would dare say it's the best LEGO mech we have ever gotten in general. Why do I love this mech? Well, first of all, it is incredibly posable in the way that it's built, and yet stable at the same time. The legendary LEGO designer, Neek aka Tooth Dominoes, set out to make his masterpiece of a LEGO set mech here, and it really does show. The knees bend with sliding knee panels, the ankles are fully articulated with bionicle piston-like elements being used doubly on the back of the knees to actually allow it to be fully posed. You have some phenomenal wings on the back which actually can be bent around, the elbows can move all the way up to actually have a full-on range of motion when it bends forwards and backwards, backwards, and you have the gigantic Dune Ornithopter blade being used as the sword. The Titan mech here utilizes the same color scheme as many of the other Titan mechs, integrating white into Cole's traditionally black and orange color scheme, but I feel like they were able to actually pull that off really well. Not only is this fully articulatable, but it also just looks really good on display, and you can get this in pretty much any sort of pose that you want. It's definitely one of the best LEGO sets that came out this year, and honestly, it might be my favorite set of the year. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased here because I love action figure style builds, especially when LEGO does create builds that are like Bionicle sets or action figure mechs, but this to me is a true feat of engineering. You have LEGO finally going all out when it comes to a build that can be fully posed, articulated, and yet is stable at the same time. And yes, while it only does include one minifigure, the designer actually explained they wanted to maximize the actual budget being used to make sure all of the money going into the set went into the set itself. And even for that one minifigure, it's a really cool suit for Cole, a white and orange suit, which is completely different than many of the other minifigures we've gotten from him in the past, but looks absolutely phenomenal. Overall, I am a huge fan of how they were able to pull off the design of this mech. It is easily the best mech that LEGO's ever made, and the color scheme just makes it absolutely stand out. Any future LEGO mechs are going to have a hard time living up to this one. But overall, that about sums up our look at every single one of my favorite sets between the $50 to $100 price range for this year, and stay tuned in the future because next up we only have 2 more videos in this LEGO Awards series, the over $100 category for licensed and non-licensed sets. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to stay tuned for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.